This video is sponsored by .design. Listen. Diary of a Wimpy Kid? Cinema. Diary of a Wimpy Kid Roderick Rules? Oscar winner. Diary of a Wimpy Kid Dog Days? A stellar conclusion to one of the best film trilogies of all time. The Diary of a Wimpy Kid film series is unironically a fantastic, imaginative, charming film series. One that was soured by the long haul, but since that doesn't have the same musical score, the same actors, and in general is a load of shit, it can be ignored, preserving the Wimpy Kid trilogy. I've talked about it on my channel before, and now, boom. Oh, Fox. Why'd you censor me, Nick? I said Fox. Disney bought 20th Century Fox and with it the rights to the Wimpy Kid franchise. So here's the oh shit moment. They decide to reboot the series. And look, that's cool. They have infinite money, resources, connections. If anyone can fund a good movie, it's Disney. Hell, remember the Nut movie? The Nutting movie? What was it called? The Nutcracker in the Four Realms. Yeah, that cost $120 million. So Disney can most definitely shell out the money. So why, oh why, does Diary of a Wimpy Kid look like this? When they released a promo image way back when, it looked okay? So like, what the hell am I looking at? I'm getting Addams Family flashbacks. Today, ladies, gentlemen, chads, we will be talking about the new Diary of a Wimpy Kid movie. What went wrong with its embarrassing story, direction, animation, music, and so much more. Strap in, and before we begin, I want to thank .design for making this video possible. Now, to get clients as a designer, you have to have a portfolio website to show off your work, right? It's the most important thing. In my opinion, a portfolio is more important than a resume. Whether you're starting out as a designer or you're looking for ways to improve your online presence, you need a domain name that tells the world who you are and what you do right from the jump. .design is the premier domain extension for professional and aspiring designers. It's already used by many of the world's leading brands, design departments, and design studios, making it the go-to domain of choice for the global design community. And hey, .design is a more elegant URL option. For example, your URL could go from AnnGoldsmithDesign.com to AnnGoldsmith.design. It has a nice ring to it. You can head over to www.your.design to learn more about .design and find the perfect name for your website or portfolio. .design reflects what you do as a designer, helps you with your branding, and you can learn more and get your domain just by clicking the link in the description. Thanks so much for sponsoring today's video, y'all, and let's get on with Diary of a Wimpy Kid. I went into the new Diary of a Wimpy Kid movie with low expectations, not high ones. The trailer made me realize how it would look, and I was already not liking it. So I was hoping the movie would surprise me. And it did, but in a bad way. I was shocked by how absolutely horrid this movie is. First up, let's get the music out of the way, because I have the least to say about it. John Paisano seriously phoned this one in. The music isn't really memorable, it isn't engaging, it feels kinda derivative, and doesn't add to scenes, they feel more like afterthoughts. One of the best parts of the original Diary of a Wimpy Kid movies was hearing that majestic melody composed by ya boy Theodore Shapiro. A melody that was so good, the composer for its sequels kept it in. So you can imagine my disappointment when there was no song to latch onto in this film, but worse than that, there's no character I want to latch onto either, because the characters of this movie suck ass. So Greg Heffley, yeah, he's probably a sociopath. He's not a good person, in fact, he's quite frankly a terrible one. The writers and directors of the original trilogy clearly noticed this and realized it would be hard to have the audience root for a protagonist that is clearly a massive dick. So they made the first film more so a film about how Greg is insecure more than anything, and he projects his insecurities onto others, harming them in the process. The first film is about how Greg grows into becoming a better person. And not just that, the movie alters the book so it's less cynical and more heartwarming. Rowley does no wrong at all. He comes up with Zooey Mama on his own, for example, while in the book, Greg and Rowley come up with it together. And Rowley essentially takes the idea and runs with it without crediting Greg, which is a lot douchier. And so all these fixes in the movies are made to make Rowley seem like a better person and Greg stays the bad one, because he is the character that needs to grow, and it's portrayed perfectly because Greg is incredibly charming, played by Zachary Gordon. You can tell it's this dude that wants to be cool but is going about it in the wrong way, and that's one of the main issues with the new animated movie. Greg, he has no goal at all. It works for the book because that's a day-to-day format and it's just fun to read and bask in the misery. But this is a movie. A short movie, but a movie nonetheless. This movie has a protagonist that seems to have no other goal other than survive middle school, and that shit is boring. In the original film, his goal was to become popular, and every action he takes is an effort to become popular. In both movies, he says he's gonna be rich and famous growing up and that's why he's writing in this journal, but he only acts on that in the original film. And both movies have scenes where Greg has to contemplate on what he's done and the people he's hurt just to try and become more popular. And compared to the original film, in the new one, it just doesn't hit as hard.
You have to trust your gut and try to do the right thing because it's our choices that make us who we are.
You need to figure out a way to make things right by Rowley. You owe that to him.
This moment in the reboot would have hit harder if there was a lot more buildup of terrible things Greg did to Rowley. But in the film, this doesn't exist. There's no inner turmoil that feels satisfying. Greg feels like a legitimate victim half the time. And it isn't nuanced like in the first film, where Greg's environment shapes who he is and why he wants to become popular. No, Greg is literally just given a shit time in the reboot, and Rowley is such an asshole by the end of the film. It doesn't feel like he's just young, naive, and oblivious to things like in the original film. It seems like he legitimately wants to shit on Greg. He doesn't let Greg sit at his table, he doesn't stick up for him, and literally one of his cronies punches Greg in the face. Now that is way worse than an accidental football to a tricycle.
Rowley deserves your respect!
Go wee mama!
Like, dude, what? What did I just witness? Rowley becomes like the kingpin essentially, and at this point, awfully, I feel myself rooting for Greg. And the reason I'm supposed to feel this way isn't because Greg is the only one that's sane in this movie, it's because we understand what Greg wants and he's just not getting it. No, here Greg is just not a good person, and like nobody in this movie is a good person, so it's just this cycle of shit. It's unbearable to watch. The climax of the movie is, of course, the quote-unquote fight scene with Greg and Rowley, and man, this thing is just unwatchable. Rowley has only had one truly bad experience with Greg, and that's the arm cast thing. So there's nothing else really to build up a genuine disgust towards his friend. And Greg actually has an excuse for feeling left out. Rowley knowingly alienated him, took his comic, and let him get beat the fuck up. It's weird as shit, and of course, there's no excuse for that. Greg says, dude, you've changed ever since you broke your arm. And Rowley's weak excuse is, you're the one that broke it. As if that excuses Rowley from being an absolute dick to Greg for half the movie. And going back to the original film, Rowley feels betrayed by Greg, as Greg impersonated Rowley and got him kicked out of the safety patrol.
You hated my cartoon. You made fun of my clothes, you disrespected Joshy. You broke my hand and you didn't even seem sorry.
This, along with getting him in danger multiple times and breaking his arm, it makes sense for Rowley to want to stay away from Greg. And Rowley feels bad about it multiple times. And so they of course fight, get caught by teenagers, and Rowley eats the cheese. And the resolution of Greg stating that he ate the cheese doesn't feel earned at all. The entire movie feels less about him wanting to gain the middle school system for personal satisfaction, and more like middle school is just shitty and he has to deal with it. This feels more like, hey, let me bail Rowley out here, rather than the more interesting, let me help my friend survive social scrutiny because this school is hyper-focused on superficiality. And now I realize that having social influence doesn't matter, what matters is who you surround yourself with and who you are. There's no lesson to be learned in the reboot, it's just, hey, even if your friends are shitty and you're shitty, just stay friends, okay? The original film makes Greg and Rowley to be lifetime friends, and you feel that. The reboot makes it clear that they seriously need to find new friends to hang out with. But overall, there's a chance this movie wouldn't have been that bad if the direction and animation weren't what they were, because man, they're bad. I don't know what kind of budget Disney put into this, but because it looks like the Addams Family, I'm gonna assume it's not enough. And worse, I hate having to critique animators and modelers and those that worked on the movie because I'm sure they didn't have enough time to work on this movie. But as it is now, the movie looks awful. And this isn't purely a CG issue, this is also a direction issue. The movie has no sense of direction, the cinematography is awful, the lens being used is just not correct and makes everything look small. One of the worst moments is the scene where the characters go into middle school for the first time and it's just bad. Why does it look like this? There's so much inspiration too, it could have gone a Spider-Verse route, more comic-y, cartoony. It could have gone a Captain Underpants route, looks very similar, but its presentation feels extravagant and dynamic. Or he could have gone a Peanuts movie route, which I feel would have fit the best. The way the characters are positioned in the world and it sort of mimics that two-dimensional style is brilliant. Or, you know, they could have just done a two-dimensional style. It could have just been illustrated. It could have been 2D. And by 2D, I mean dynamic, like in the original Diary of a Wimpy Kid movie, with nice animation and it looks slick, and not simple, just puppet animated like it is in the reboot. And it's weird because sometimes the movie has dynamic shots out of nowhere, but they're always clunky. It's actually really weird. Like, I'm gonna be super frank here, I have no idea how some shots were approved in this movie. It confuses me so much because they're clearly not polished. So that's why I assume that they didn't have enough time to finish this, right? It always feels like the movie doesn't know what it wants to be, and again, it's not polished enough, so it hurts. It feels like the animation has been properly blocked, but they just splined it and called it a day, which is a bummer. It's super obvious when there's jarring animation like going up the stairs, frozen animation, or just stuff like this. It also doesn't help that the models, while simple, are not as good as they could be. And again, this leads me to believe that the CG artists working on this movie didn't have enough time because the models definitely needed polish. The way the mouth operates, the character design doesn't lend itself for 3D. The mouth syncing is always weirdly off. And when in extreme poses, the mouth's edges pull too much on the mesh, creating wrinkles and imperfections that can be easily noticed. And they're super noticeable, by the way, under certain lighting conditions. Overall, the visual style of the movie leaves a lot to be desired, and it's just not interesting to look at. And I know this movie is marketed towards kids, but look, the original movie was too. So how come that movie's given more money and time? So yes, hashtag not my Wimpy Kid. This movie was an unfortunate mess that I was severely disappointed to have watched. The director, Swinton Scott, he hasn't directed much to be honest, and nothing against him, but man, get it together for the sequel, please. In the meantime, if you have Disney Plus and have checked out the movies, check out the original trilogy. Those movies are definitely worth your time. April 2nd! April 2nd! Yep, that's right, that's when the first episode of Interstellar Ranger Commence comes out on the channel. Make sure to check out the trailer, the link is in the description, and make sure to get some IRC merch over on the Crowdmade store, as well as some other Browntable merch as well. Thanks so much, KRWizzy, I think that's how you say your name, I'm not super sure, but thank you so much for this Interstellar Ranger Commence fan art. It's absolutely phenomenal. Wish I could frame it, it's so dope. So yeah, thank you so much, and thank you so much patrons for supporting me. Your support means a lot. Thank you so much, I sincerely appreciate it. And yeah, patrons, more like epic ends. I'm gonna go cry now. But before that, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thanks so much for coming to the table, and I'll see you all next time.